Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World, and this episode is part of MSDW's DynamicsMinds 2026 coverage. We were a media partner of the event. I was on site in Portorož, Slovenia for the annual community gathering. We're going to be putting out a few shorter episodes featuring conversations with experts who were presenting at the event. In this episode, we are talking with Jeremy Vyska. He's a Microsoft MVP as well as a solution architect, developer, and community leader who recently started an article series with MSDW called Field Notes on Agentic Development. The first piece discusses BCQuality, a community project focused on Business Central development best practices. We talk about some of the goals there, as well as his work to boost other community projects around AI accelerated development, the tie-in to his session at DynamicsMinds, and how it all fits together with his own work and his outlook on the Business Central channel. All right. Well, hey, Jeremy, thanks so much for taking a few minutes here to chat as DynamicsMinds is not over, but starting to wind down a little bit, I think.
Yep, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. I wanted to start just asking you about something that did come up at the event here. You had a little call out from sort of the keynote stage from Donna Sarkar about a project you were telling her about. Can you fill us in on that?
Absolutely. Stefan Marone had been working on an interesting idea with testability to make it possible for agents to more quickly use testing. Because when you're in agentic world, a 10, 20-minute delay is a significant delay in the workflow of things. So he had come up with an interesting strategy to be able to take the AL code, transpile it to C#, and use the C# frameworks to run the testing with mocked infrastructure around it, like almost a virtual environment of Business Central to be able to run those unit tests. And there is some pushback of, well, we still can't run integration tests. He's actually working on a version 2 of that right now. And how I got involved and became the communicator about this is Brad Pendergast, Steve Endo, and I collaborated a little bit, and it was sort of wonderful and brilliant that Stefan had tuned. I think Torben Leth was helping on some of the tuning of this. He actually was using an orchestrator agent that was creating GitHub issues and assigning them to our agent armies, and we were running anywhere from 1 to 4 agents that were completing individual tasks. So in the span of a week and a half, an impossible mission was accomplished. And now we've got this really interesting framework that we can run, 1,800 unit tests in about 20 seconds. And that's the kind of speed that we need to be able to bring to agentic development verification process. So it's a phenomenal project. AL Runner is the name of it.
Thank you so much for telling me about that, because I'd seen his original post come up on LinkedIn, I think, and then I read it and I was like, boy, there's some coding concepts and build concepts in here I don't understand from his explanation, like without going. And then I kind of lost track of it. This was 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks?
It wasn't that long ago. Yeah, it was only about a month.
And I've been searching back just to figure out what it was I saw, and I haven't been able to find it because LinkedIn's horrible for that kind of thing. Well, and I forgot who posted it even. So
yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm summarizing and glossing over lots of amazing technical details, and there are plenty of folks who are in the feedback were trying to understand how are you doing this wizardry and like what works and what doesn't work. And some of the pushback that he was getting is really valid in we have to design our Business Central extensions to support the unit test story. But if you've been coming to conferences like these for the past few years, you've been hearing us talking about how testability is vital. And Vyska this year has been doing some great talks about code review is dead. The real quality measure in a Business Central organization is the testability. That is now the most vital stopgap we can have against the speed of code generation and verifying that it's good.
That's a really different way of thinking, I would guess, for R&D teams, that to sort of make to accept that, and B, to make the necessary adjustments to how they operate.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a significant thing. We've relied so much on code review to accomplish multiple objectives, and Vyska's talks this year have been phenomenal around decomposing what are those objectives. Are we trying to be human linters? Are we trying to transfer knowledge from person to person? Or are we trying to catch bugs? And he makes a great case of, if you actually look at field research on code review, the one real thing that we needed to do to catch bugs, it's very not successful at. So the real story about now that it's agentic, there is no knowledge transfer, and syntax doesn't matter if your agents are the only one touching the code. It matters some, but there are linters for that.
Yeah, super interesting. I'll do my best to, I think another concept now that, was it transpiling? Was that a term that was used or something like that?
Yeah, a fancy way of saying one programming language worth of concept going into another programming language.
Okay, from one to another. Okay.
Yeah, so AL becomes C#, TypeScript becomes JavaScript. These are transpiling, unlike the traditional concept of compiling where it takes the programming language and becomes machine code. We're going from one language to another and then relying on that language to be compiled.
Right.
And there is a reasonable argument that these days the spec-driven development we're doing, effectively the agentic development, is the transpiler. So meaning that we're taking our specification and we're turning that into AL. But if we're never actually looking at the AL, it's the same thing as taking the AL and having it go to C#.
So it's sort of a philosophical question as much as it is a technical one, I suppose.
Well, and it's also really important. Partners have started to have this conversation too. There's a copyright implication to that. If there are no humans involved in the crafting of the code, then you have to show what the human effort was for that code to be copywritten. Kamil Sacek was talking a lot about that this week at this conference, and having really good specifications that are basically your root source of the IP that becomes the code is one of those building blocks that you can use in some of the cases that are still being sorted out.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about maybe a different but perhaps similar related thing, which was, Microsoft's encouraging, I guess, consultants, or I guess customers too, to sort of define and skill sort of what they need from an agent and sort of how it should act. And I was thinking, like, if you want partners to be interested in helping their customers do that, I mean, where's the protection in it? Is there, if it's their special IP and it's just in an MD file or whatever, is there a way that they can differentiate on something like that?
Well, and that is the challenge, I think, for the road ahead is we are a long-lived ecosystem. I've been around for a fairly long while, but the ecosystem's been around even longer. The rate of change that we're now experiencing is one of the most dramatic and fast-paced sort of change. And it's no wonder at all if anyone in any position, whether it be executive, consulting, or development, if they're feeling like they're running, 5 miles an hour, but the treadmill's set to 10. It's no wonder that folks are feeling like that. And apologies to the European listeners. I'm chatting with an American, so we're using Imperial.
All right. Well, while I have you here, I wanted to mention a couple other things. One is that you started this great new series with us, which I was really honored that you thought of us for it. But it was based on a new sort of community project that you've launched and is sort of up and running, right? BCQuality. Can you tell us what that's about?
Okie dokie. Well, the two different parts to that question, the agentic field report that we're doing with MS Dynamics World, that is going to be, a lot of folks have asked me, how can I keep up? And what stuff do I need to know? So I'm going to try my best to bring together the most essential pieces, separating a lot of the hype from the reality. So for example, when you get wrapped around the axle of, we just spent all of our time learning about prompts or custom agents and now skills are the hotness. What does that mean for me? And what does that mean for our organization? So since a lot of people were asking, please find a way to share what you're learning in a good way. I looked at the options. I debated doing, monthly blog posts and that sort of thing. But realistically, MS Dynamics World is a wonderful home for that sort of content for, a broad community to be able to engage with. And I think it'll be fantastic if folks reading that reach out to you and say, we would love to hear more about that. And then we can do some more lovely podcasts over this. Maybe we can do some answers of questions that people get when they're reading those topics. But you mentioned the community project that was the content of the first field report, which was the BCQuality. And that ties together with the story about code review and validation and all that. There is an increasing pressure for partners who are kind of frontier partners working with agentic development to come up with ways to have consistent standards and evaluations for logical business processes that the agent must always follow these things. And for the most part, that right now is being relied upon by the individual development effort on their machine. So, skills that they're using and invoking on their machines, but it's still being very much part of the individual developer's experience, even if you're doing clever things with shared repositories. What people have been starting to do over time is integrate agentic moments, or at least LLM invocations, agentic moments within the pipeline story, and be able to start having a unified skill library that can be invoked in the right moment, in the right context. So a development effort that is going to create some code changes, you create the pull review. Well, wouldn't it be good if all of the code people were submitting was going through a central set of skills that your organization has agreed upon? So working with Microsoft, they saw that ALGO was a really natural place to start bringing that into the partner community in a pipeline project. And I've had some lovely chats with Waldo and the AL Ops team since. I'm talking to some of the Cosmo folks at Alpaca about this. BCQuality is the knowledge base necessary for what those LLMs don't understand about Business Central that are important to catch in that review and verification process. From the design stage to the triage of support to the performance considerations, all of those different things. And it's not only is it based on some of the Microsoft engineering team, we have a lovely layer of the Microsoft knowledge. We've got the community layer, which is the beginning of the migration of both the AL guidelines content, as well as, I've had the BC Code Intel MCP, that infrastructure that I came out with in the fall. I'm in the process of migrating all of that knowledge into BCQuality so they can be unified. So that way there's this lovely, we have an agreed upon for our industry set of knowledge and everything that it should be checked for before it's considered good.
Yeah, it's a very cool sounding project, and I think the spirit of it comes through in the sort of the initiative, which is really great. And I'm looking forward to having you help us tackle other topics and seeing what our readers really care about.
Well, and on that note, at Tech Days, we've added a session about BCQuality that Jesper and I are doing together. It's very early in the process of validating and building that library. And our session at Tech Days in a couple of weeks, for anyone who's joining BC Tech Days, that will be inviting people into the thought process and how we're building it and how can people contribute to it, and potentially start to think about how are we going to start planning for our fall to be ready to start making use of this. So that'll be really fun to do a deeper dive on.
Well, while I have you here, you also presented here at DynamicsMinds, different topic. As I wasn't able to get to it, but as I just read the summary of it, can you talk about how that sort of fits in with your other work?
Absolutely. So one of the very popular things that I had shown at Directions Maya last year was like when you're going to ingest requests from customers, and it needs to go through the machinery of consultative process, evaluation, specification, quoting, turn into a design, handed back from the developer to the consultant. All of that process, where can you bring agentic tools into that workflow to shave down the lost time of calendar? So that was one example that I used in my session that was talking about generally thinking about where can we start to find opportunities for automation that it's previously never been possible to bring automation in because automation couldn't provide judgment or curiosity. Those new attributes allow us to do cool things. So for example, in our organization, we do lots of integrations with BC talking to external systems. We have an agent that our salespeople in the pre-sales process can take the documentation from a customer, throw it to this agent, and in seconds, they have a checklist of all the green check marks and all the red flags that they, in that first conversation, can say, looks like we're 80, 90% there, but we need to follow up on these two in more detail. That's just a first blush, but at least they, in that very moment, can have that conversation. There's no way we could have automated that in the past, not successfully, because it requires judgment and to follow the idea and be curious.
How do you take some of these, I think you started to answer it, take some of the community work you do and the things you think about sort of in terms of BC development overall and solution architecture, and then bring it to your day-to-day work, the business you work for? Is that maybe one of the the connectors?
One of the fantastic talks that I have been to here at DynamicsMinds, Donna Sakara was presenting with her colleague Anna about human context protocol. And it was a way of going, okay, we're all nervous about what our future holds. What does our future look like as humans in this workspace where there's so much opportunity for agents to allegedly take over so much responsibility? But there are things that agents can't be. They can't be funny. They can't calm a situation down. They can't question the challenge, or like challenge the assumptions of the situation that you're in, or catch those little nuances that make you go, this person's really nervous. Let me guide them through the process. And her talk was phenomenal to talk about the heart and the community and like the presence that you have. Hopefully I'm remembering the acronym right. But that one was phenomenal because it spoke to how do you identify what value you bring to the people around you that agents can't replace. And if you can work with people around you or even your own agent tools to figure out what your HCP is, and then you lean into those strengths, then agents are no threat to you. And I get the question from developers, especially who have been watching how successful code development is coming along of like, am I going to be replaced? Are we going to be phased out? I'll give a few really concrete examples because devs love us concrete examples. I have an inventory assessment that I actually did a measure of the number of commits that I did pre-agentic for 6 months and post-agentic. Do you want to guess how many times faster at producing code I became because of agents?
See, I'm trying to guess. Is it a tiny bit or is it a lot? I would say maybe 4 times.
145.
Wow.
145 times faster. And the natural immediate pushback is how could you possibly trust that volume of increase in your code? And it's a quality measure. So we also evaluated what was the ratio before and after around testability. Now with that in place, think about the fact that I'm 145 times faster than I used to be. You would think then I don't need as many people in my organization. I've just finished this past week, 2 interviews to hire 2 more people to work for me. Not because I need code produced more fastly. It's all of the now, because the code cost is so much lower to get stuff done, we have more demand. We have more projects that people want to do because it's now more feasible to do more with their money. They're getting higher value because the cost of the operation is lower. So what I tell people is that our opportunity ahead as partners, the market is changing in that the projects might feel more shallow, but it's so much broader. Because the individual piles aren't going to be, we've been through this once before with upgrades. It used to be you would do like a 500 hour nav upgrade every few years. And now a major upgrade could just happen on any given Tuesday. There's no time. Right. So we've been through that sort of thing before where some of the big piles of hours flattened. It didn't reduce how much we had to do. It just meant that the money customers were spending on projects could be for more interesting things. And therefore, from both sides, from the customer side, we're still providing really good value now, even if we're doing time and expense. And from the consultative and development side, we have more stuff that we can be doing because we spend more time with the customer discussing the problems, planning solutions for the problem, the execution has just become cheaper.
That's fascinating. And I really look forward to sort of hearing more of your thoughts on this type of stuff as we go forward here. I've got to let you go, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And I know you have a lot to do still before the event wraps up and all that. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking a few minutes.
Thank you very much for the soapbox.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Jeremy for taking a few minutes to chat. Please do be on the lookout for Jeremy's writing on MSDW. We'll put a link to his most recent article in the show notes. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.